It's also National Pet Day. I don't know if you guys know this, but
What?
this is big at RiskScout. So like whenever we have an error at RiskScout, I don't know if Jack's seen this yet, but Deb knows this. We show a pug and we say, "Don't pug out." And so we're going to continue to like create pets because at least if you're having a problem, it's a little bit of a lighter way to
Yeah.
deal with it.
Can I send you pictures of my French bulldogs? Because, I have this issue about, I have a shirt that says, call my Frenchie a pug one more time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Every
please.
time
Send it to
we go
me.
somewhere, they're like, oh my God, is that a pug? I'm like, no. It's a
Send me your pictures, and it might end up in the product, but we'll get you licensing rights for that.
Not gonna lie, I did dress him up for Chinese New Year, just saying.
Business deals happening on the fly. I love it.
All right, so we got some people joining. Niraj is going to kick us off. We're talking about our National Pet Day. So I'm almost thinking I should have my boxer sitting in this chair. She's way smarter than I am. So
Matthew, maybe we'll give it another 30 seconds or so.
yeah. Every once in a while, my boxer gets super fired up, and you'll see this little brown shadow running behind me. So if you'll see that, her name is Oakley. Just tell her to calm down.
It's a case of the zoomies. Is that what they call it?
Yes,
Zoomies?
yes. That she's got an antler, and she's learned that it drives me crazy that she'll throw it up in the air, and the louder and louder it gets. So I might have all of her toys here on my desk for this webinar, so you don't hear them, in the background.
They always find a way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I taught mine how to ring a bell before it wants to go outside. I have two. But if they want water, they want attention, they just want me to look at them, they will just hit it. And the first time they hit it, it's a really gentle, like ding. And then if they don't get a response from me, they hit it harder. It's like ding, ding. But man, they get mad. My dog will hit it so hard and it goes ding, ding, ding.
Oh,
I'm like, okay, I got it. You need me. I'm on my way.
I love it.
That's a good trick. That's a good trick.
Do it until it's not.
Well, on that
Oh.
on that note of ringing bells, let's go ahead and get started since it's the top of the hour. Welcome everyone to the second Bankers Helping Bankers Fund webinar series. I'm Niraj Vora. I'm the managing partner at the Bankers Helping Bankers Fund. And we designed this webinar series so that bankers can hear, frankly, very directly from other bankers how they're benefiting by being customers of the companies that the fund is investing in. The Bankers Helping Bankers Fund, for those of you who may not be familiar, it's a venture capital fund. It's backed by community banks and other organizations that are highly supportive of community banks. We invest in technology companies that are helping community banks solve here and now problems. Community banks that invest in the fund get to see the emerging technologies while earning venture capital returns, which we think is a real win-win. Today, we're excited to showcase one of our earliest investments, Austin-based RiskScout. And to get the conversation started, I'm going to turn the webinar over to my good friend, Matthew Smith, who runs Bankers Helping Bankers. Matthew?
All right, thanks, Niraj. Super excited about this panel today. If you don't know, I love to tell the RiskScout story. I tell it all over the place because I think it's an incredible investment for the BHB fund. So I kind of fanboy out around Justin every once in a while. But let me introduce everybody. So Justin Fischer, CEO and co-founder of RiskScout. Deborah Lin, she's with Blue Sky out of the great state of Oklahoma, right? The skies are blue. She was telling me a little bit ago. She's assistant vice president there. And of course, Jack Stark out of American Bank. He's senior vice president. So welcome. We've got the question and answers up and going. Be sure and send those questions. I already see Greg McKnight's already sent one in. So Justin, at some point in time, I'm not going to tell you when. We got a very important question coming through. Do you have a dad joke of the day? And we'll get that in there here in a little bit. But before we get started with that, because Greg, I'm on the edge of my seat here, curious what this dad joke is. Jack, tell me a little bit about your bank. I want to know the asset size and number of branches.
Yeah, so American Bank, Dallas Fort Worth, not the one in Waco, not the one in Corpus, just up here in Dallas Fort Worth. New ownership bought the bank 5 years ago, and it's $55 million then. Last month we hit 500 million, so 10x in 5 years. A lot of that, we got 32 million in capital from ESIP from the US government because we're a minority owned institution. to fund that dramatic growth. And I've been here 3 years, and we have 3 branches in Dallas.
Nice. Thanks, Jack. All right, Deborah, your turn. I'm anxious to hear about your bank. Tell me about asset size and number of branches.
Sure. Blue Sky Bank is a 115-year-old bank that started here in Oklahoma in a little town called Pahuska. When I started this program 3 years ago, we were $250 million in assets. As we sit today, at that time we had 7 branches. Over the last year and a half, we've acquired 3 different banks, bringing us to a total of 14 locations between Oklahoma and Texas, our footprint there. And we are currently at $1.1 billion in assets.
Nice. All right, so I'm excited, Deborah. I tell the story all the time, but I need to hear it from your perspective. What was the problem you're trying to solve whenever you reach out to Justin at RiskScout? Walk me through that as a community bank, what that problem is.
Yeah, for us, it was really just consolidation and efficiency in our workflow. As you know, with any organization, you're only as strong as your weakest link, and processing paperwork and overviewing them and onboarding clients is a huge piece and a huge internal lift. So we wanted to find ways to find more improvements in regards to internal communication, understanding who has the ball at what point and where it is in that workflow. And RiskScout came through with a great out-of-the-box solution that was customizable, that allowed us to do that very quickly and efficiently. And it really allowed us to stay within one system outside of our core, instead of having to go into 3 different systems to onboard the same client. So this just overall consolidation for us was huge. And then just internal communication and correspondence as to, I'm doing a pre-qual, here's the app. Once I'm done with the app, I can assign it to my compliance team. And when they're done, they reassign it back to us. And that's huge because that eliminates all these additional emails internally that aren't necessary.
I love that. Anytime you can find efficiencies, that's great, right? Jack, walk me through real quick, and then Justin, I mean, you're just got to be just sitting on the edge of your seat with excitement, right, about how bankers are talking about the problem that you're solving. But Jack, walk me through your problem that you guys are trying to solve.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we've grown tremendously the past few years. So we had capital solved, we have loan demand solved, but we didn't have funding or deposits solved, besides paying the best CD rates in the market, which is not sustainable for a bank, as we all know. And so we're essentially a niche lender on the revenue side, and we want to be a niche deposit gatherer. And the way we wanted, our first attempt is to go find a niche that other banks or most other banks won't target. But in order to do that efficiently, we would need to take BSA risk, and we were looking at RiskScout to help us take that risk without having to hire a whole nother bank's worth of compliance people.
Justin, walk me through, when you were creating RiskScout, I know you were visiting with some very specific banks early on and saying, look, how do I come in and help you? Walk me through a little bit of that conversation. And now we're hearing it from Deborah and Jack, real life examples. Walk me through a little bit how that feels. That's got to be exciting as the co-founder of RiskScout, right?
Yeah. So this is my 4th business working for banks and credit unions in the country, and it's never not exciting. Like, I think honestly, I didn't know that I would go and build another business for banks and credit unions. And when you start talking to your technical staff, and they're like, but our institution's doing the most innovative things. And I said, well, if they are or aren't, they need to be. And the thing that's most important to me, as being a 4th generation farmer in South Texas, is that it was the community bank that helped us grow our farm. It's a community bank that will give a loan to a RiskScout early on in the days, right? It's not going to be Bank of America and the bigger, money center banks. So what was really exciting for me is, so what is something that really software could help an institution with, and then really good sort of best practice around that. And a lot of my institutions from my previous years were coming to me saying, have you looked at BSA, AML compliance? And what they started to do is paint a picture of basically, kind of our perspective, like the TSA at the airport, right? If you're not a BSA officer, it's a process that has to happen, but it's getting harder and harder to do, and it's incredibly manual. So as a CEO, what do? Do you just go hire 5 more TSA people? Let's say you could afford them. That's not necessarily the right answer, right? Can you use software and a really great staff to actually, do something my coaches always used to tell me: slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? And BSA, AML, and automation in your ops team may not be the first thing you think about when you want to grow, but it's actually really important, because it then opens up your ability to go into markets, right? It's a catch-22. So that's where it was really exciting. And Deb was one of our earlier customers who brought those use cases, and probably also second to that, the fun part of it is every day, and Deb can attest to this, and Jack is starting to get in this process, is we ask for feedback, we ask for things, and unlike some other groups, won't name any names, they stop asking because it becomes a black hole and they're not able to do it. One of my favorite times about the companies I've been in is the early times to mid times when you can just respond this quickly and say, oh, you asked me for that thing? Here you go, try it out. What do you think? And so those are the exciting things. And you see it's actually solving the pain that they're dealing with every day. And yeah, I mean, how can you not get excited about that every morning?
That's awesome. So Deborah, as a community banker, I've sat in implementation seats a lot, right? And one of my favorite questions to ask another community banker is, walk me through that implementation process. Was it painful? Was it easy? Especially if you be an early stage, and I love hearing that. Kudos to you if you were closer, I'd high five you. But walk me through that implementation process, would you?
For us, I wouldn't always say blessed, but we did have a good trial and tribulation that while we were integrating from our current software that we're utilizing for our specialty banking piece, and transitioning over to RiskScout, whose that name will be not mentioned, it was actually the most easiest process. They took our information, they input it, and then here they were, and our customers were happy that they just had to go in and answer a few questions and update things for us. And then we went through the new, approval process one more time, just so that we can work through any kinks. It was short and sweet. I think we accomplished that. At that time, the number of accounts we had in that specialty banking program was about 87. And we were able to do that in less than 45 days. Now, fast forward to the end of that quarter last year, and we actually purchased a bank that needed to remove some of their business, and we've acquired that piece, and that made us on board 89 relationships, 114 accounts in less than 60 days successfully. And the compliments just flew in from all of our customers who had been transitioned from multiple banks before, and they're like, that is the most intuitive app I've ever used. It was the most user-friendly. It was clear and concise. I knew exactly what you needed, and they moved on. And that's not really common to be able to onboard that many accounts that quickly and successfully with all their information coming through.
That's incredible. And I do want to remind everybody, we do have the question and answer open. So I see my good friend, Julie Rianoso out there. Julie, if you see a question, don't hesitate to ask me. Don't just sit out there and be quiet. Jack, walk me through, as you're going out and you're looking at these different adventures for the bank, some of them are going to be high risk, medium risk, low risk. As you're sitting at this SVP level, a lot of times you're concerned about how much staff am I going to have to bring on, and what does that look like? And it sounds like RiskScout, at least what I'm hearing from Deborah, is you're not going to have to bring on a lot of staff because there's so many efficiencies built in that tool. How important was that whenever you're looking at RiskScout, especially with these new adventures you're heading out for?
That's essentially what we were looking for. We needed some technology we could leverage tremendously. We have like 50 employees. 5 years ago, the bank had 20. Now we have 50 to 60. We don't want to hire staff unless we absolutely have to. We'd rather find, a team, a partnership, a vendor. We can come together and basically view them as an extension of our own employees, them and their technology. And that, like, my onboarding experience was essentially that. We started from zero, so we were able to leverage the knowledge of RiskScout's employees as we're setting up RiskScout. It's like, hey, when you did MSPs at a prior institution, how would you set this up? And so we were able to not just get technology, but get resources by signing the contract with RiskScout. But yeah, that was the killer feature. That was a requirement from our vendor search, is they had to have the capability to allow us to leverage our FTEs. We just didn't want to, have a different version, a web version of a spreadsheet, right? You can do that in Microsoft Office. We needed something that could leverage, 2 or 3 times per FTE.
Justin, we at the bank, at Bankers Helping Bankers, we get up every day thinking of how we can help community banks out. Literally, I think I was at the Mayo Ranch all weekend long. I think I might have got 6 hours of sleep because we're so freaking excited about how do we help community banks. And it sounds like, as a fund investment, investing in RiskScout was by far the right thing to do. And hearing from Deborah and Jack, I just got to say thank you. It's incredible what you're building. Walk me through, is there anything on your roadmap? And I know you don't want to give too much stuff away out there, but and what's out there? What's next for RiskScout? I mean, we're just getting started. We got a lot of banks on it. What's next in the roadmap for RiskScout?
Yeah, well, first I'll come back to Greg's question and give him the dad jokes. So get prepared here, guys. You're just gonna be laughing the rest of the session, okay? So, one of the things I think about is that things like Botox used to be very taboo, but now no one lifts an eyebrow. My trainer told me I should really work out, do more lunges, but the honest truth is it's a really big step. And then the final one is an old rancher one. What do you call a cow with a twitch? Come on, Matthew. What do you call a cow with a twitch?
Mad cow? I don't know.
This is a kid one. Beef jerky.
Oh, I should have got that one.
All right, that's all my dad jokes for now. We'll resume later. So yeah, look, I just want to say, like, the biggest focus for RiskScout is to be as flexible as possible to meet our financial institutions where they are. And what I mean by that is, we heard about this with the implementation. It goes down to, and Deborah, you don't have to share this if you don't want, but your growth, when your growth was crazy, and rather than treating the contract like the contract, what does the institution need, and how can we adjust our stuff so that it's what's best for the institution, and what I believe is what's best for the institution, what's best for RiskScout. It follows, right? It's just the nature of me. But I was asked this actually at a conference in Nashville this last week. They said, so what motivates you in building RiskScout? And I was at a big company that grew in institutions, and we had 6 to 12 month implementation cycles. And it was great top line growth, but it's really tough for everybody involved. And so when we looked at this, we said, how can we make this better and faster? And how can we cut down on the kind of risk, that the vendor risk, I should say, that an institution takes? And one of the things you realize when you sell out to institutions and they don't know you, there's so many bad actors that are selling something and then they're disappearing, right? And if you do that in sort of BSA and compliance, and you disappear 6 months later, the examiner's walking through Deb's door, for example, that's not a great thing, right? Now your software is not doing what it's supposed to. It's not meeting the expectations. So the big thing for us is to meet the customer where they are, be flexible. And so the biggest thing is, we've heard from our institutions starting last year that they want full BSA AML replacement software. So something that very clearly replaces a Verifin, a Yellowhammer, an FCRM. And so we've done that, and we have a lot of beta customers working through it right now. So that's probably most exciting to me. But I'll say one last thing. I talked to a lot of $200 million institutions that have shied away from putting in automation because it's expensive. And then there's a perspective. I just talking to a really awesome female CEO of a bank, 200 million. And she's like, the perspective is I have to pay this large amount of money to get the software. I got to go through 6 to 12 months of implementation. Then I got to hire 2 or 3 people to go through training to figure out how to use it. What motivates me is taking a fairly complex topic like BSA AML and making it easy enough to where we can do what we call progressive BSA, which is like, hey, Jack, you want to try it out? Actually, Jack's the perfect example of that. His institution's trying us out. They try it out, and then you understand the ROI, you understand the process. And now when you're like, hey, we're going to go grow, now that we have that comfort with that, then we can decide what the right way to grow is and how we can do that with software and our advice. So I think that's the most important thing, is meeting the institution where they're at and bringing that level of flexibility. And we're doing that with BSA.
That's crazy exciting. So Deborah, back to a tactical question. You ready? How would you compare RiskScout to some of the other competitors in the market? What gets you really excited? Like, oh my gosh, the competitors, they just don't have this that RiskScout does.
Well, their compliance team, everyone and Jack touched on it too. I mean, it is irrefutable the amount of resource that they have on their team between Justin, Ryan, and everyone else, and Kristen. And we've been really grateful to have that as a guidance, because when you're going into uncharted waters and you're going into a high risk account type and dealing with these types of oversight from your state regulators, also any housing, not housing, but any boards that are controlling specific substances, you have to be really engrossed and engaged as to what that looks like, especially if you move outside of your state. And RiskScout was able to not only provide that information to us in a very easy format. I can go online and I can see what my risks are in those states and what requirements are need to be met. But in addition, if we have a question as to what our policy is, if we're about to branch into another line of business that is equally risky or less risky, We have the capacity to do that. And out of the box, we can just have another line of application and get that directly out to that specific industry or that niche. And we'll be able to, you know, pre-qual, apply, and then get them through the process very easily. So for us, I'd say definitely the resources, their knowledge, their support when it comes to getting exams coming up, because while we were going through our migration of accounts the first time, that was my first BSA exam. And so, you know, we were transitioning between two softwares, and, you know, Kristen and Justin were up on the side, hey, don't let them tell you this. Don't let them push you into this corner. These are the things that are required because consistency is key. So we were able to really communicate back to our examiners and let them know, hey, we understand what your concerns are, but we also understand from your standpoint what you're looking for. And this is how we've been able to do that, corresponding with our partnership with RiskScout. And that really just shut them down. They're like, this is great. And they got full visibility and absolutely enjoyed it. And honestly, they ended up keeping me an extra hour and interviewing with all the 12 regulators versus the one, because they were so, you know, inquisitive about what was happening in the industry that we serve. So.
That's awesome. Anything you want to add in there, Jack, before I ask you my next question?
Just a second, it's really, I feel like, you know, you have vendors that tell you they want to have a partnership with you. I actually don't think I ever heard that from anyone at RiskScout, but that's how I feel. It's just an extension of my BSA team, which I know I've heard that from so many vendors, usually ones with tens of thousands of employees, but RiskScout actually delivers on that. And that's, so far in my experience, that's been the best part of it. Is I feel like the technology is there, it's easy to set up, it's easy to use, but it's the knowledge of the employees at RiskScout that just tops it off.
Love it. So Jack, I don't know if you know this, and maybe you do, but every fintech needs to have 3 bank references, right? As a community banker, I'd always ask the question, well, who have you got this live with? Who's your community banks? And there's nothing any more important than being able to pick up the phone as a community banker and call another community banker and go, tell me what you know. So with that being said, you give an endorsement to RiskScout, you know, how comfortable are you with that? It sounds like really comfortable, but walk me through that. If a community banker is going to call you up and say, hey, Jack, looking at RiskScout, give me your top 2 bullet points, what would you say?
Top 2 bullet points is they're very easy to work with. I guess there's 3. Very easy to work with. Their system is highly configurable. And I feel like they actually want to have a relationship with me.
Deborah, what about you? You've been on this system for a while, it sounds like. I think you're probably just going to echo what Jack's saying, but I want to hear your perspective as well, real quick. What would be your top 2 bullet points if QBank calls you up?
I would really have to say just quick implementation for my, could we do this, or wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? Justin's probably gonna roll his eyes because I call it a honey-do list. But I'm like, hey, can we add these things, because I would love for it to have these additional features. And the feedback is, actually, you're not the only one that's asked about that, and it's coming, right? We see that, we know there's a need and there's a functionality, and in most of your partnerships, you don't get that quick of a response. And or being able to implement that request quickly. It's always, hey, we're going to do another release in, you know, the 2nd quarter of next year, you know, and so that's really hard for you when you're really starting to gain momentum in your business and you want to be able to move forward to be able to do that and pivot very quickly. I'd say the second point is really just to reiterate, Jack, is it is an extension of your BSA team. It is an extension of your compliance team without having to have this additional cost. And if they don't know the answer, they're going to go and source that for you. Having referrals of other community banks is paramount. I will tell you that when we first onboarded with our first partnership, I couldn't even get a referral of anyone inside of my state or outside of the state that'd be willing to talk to me. And that should have been red flag number 1, right? But we moved forward anyway. Say love you. Justin not only got me 3 referrals, he got me all referrals in my state that were direct competitors of me. And they were willing to have that conversation. So for me, that says a lot about Justin and his team in RiskScout.
All right, I got a question coming in. Julie, I love that question. I'm going to throw that to Justin here in just a second, but I want to stick with Deborah a little bit further. Deborah, this is one of my favorite questions to ask. I can't tell you my favorite question to ask because it's how I close these things out. But one of my favorite questions to ask is, when you started this journey, what do you wish that you knew now that you could go back and tell yourself then? What's that one piece of advice you tell yourself when you started this journey?
It's okay to cry in cannabis. I wish I would have met Justin sooner. Honestly, I wish I would have met Justin sooner. When I came on board, we had already made commitments. And we gave it a year. But the minute I met Justin, I knew right away this was something that made sense. Coming from a non-banking background, I was in supply chain logistics, multifamily housing. It just made a lot of sense to see this type of opportunity and process and technology accessible to me. And it wasn't this gargantuan price tag. It was literally, here's where we're going to start, and let's get you here. And pun intended, as you grow, we grow with you. And that's how it's been since day one. So, I mean, honestly, I wish I would have met Justin sooner. But now that we have, I mean, we kicked everything into gear. I mean, our turn time to approve applications with our previous partner was 4 to 6 weeks. Once we did the implementation of those 87 customers, I was closing accounts in 3 to 5 business days. So we catapulted our business literally in less than 10 months. So if that's any indication of the efficiencies and the workflow and the benefits of the BSA piece and the compliance piece, I mean, I feel like that speaks for itself. Everyone wants to be able to onboard customers quickly and safely. And there's no other software that I know of that has this robust capability that you can have such great oversight over your entire book of business, and see when licenses are expiring, when things are due, and allow compliance to communicate directly with your customer through a secure portal. So no more emails, everything's nice and tracked, and the customers are educated that this is how you're going to communicate with compliance moving forward. And they all absolutely love it because they can be anywhere in the world and they can communicate via app or text very quickly back to the compliance team. And our compliance team loves that as well because we're getting responses in a timely manner. And that allows us to file our reports accurately and quickly.
Well, to the RiskScout team on here, I don't know if there's gonna be any living with Justin after all these compliments. I feel like he's not gonna fit out the door. Now, Justin, I do have a question here for you. Like I said, Julie Reynoso, man, she is a heavy hitter, and she came in hard with the question here. I love the question. Tell me about the systems you're already integrated with, and on average, what does your implementation look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, Julie. So it's twofold. On our current system, which is just prior to the BSA AML system, it's what the bankers are talking about today. It's all relatively the same platform. We only require batch integrations. So I know I say only, and I think a lot of time tech vendors really obscure all of this stuff. I lived at Q2 and did I managed 90 cores and gosh, I don't know, thousands of other integrations. Real-time integration is a little bit different process, but we only require batch integration. So we do those with all the major cores. It's easy to come across. We've also realized that sometimes as an institution, you can't go ask your core, for another file. I mean, you can, but what the response is sure, it'll be 24 months and, $30,000, right? And so we've also built the ability to map other formats. So if you're using another BSA system, we can look at those formats. So, that is what it is. Here's a way to think about our implementation process. And that is standard kind of process. Here's our implementation process. If you're going to go, I always use Ford and Ford trucks. So I'm in Texas, but you're going to go and buy a Ford F-150 and you go to there's lots of different packages and you go to the dealership and you say, I want this red V8. And they go, okay, great. But we don't have the red V8. We got a green V6 and so forth. You might walk away and go, I'll think about it a little bit longer. So the way we look at it is, hey, Matthew, we just dropped that green V6 on your doorstep. Go drive it. Literally that day, 24 hours. So you get access to the system within 24 hours. And it is pre-configured. One of my $4 billion banks was sending MSB requests out within that week. So it's functional in there. But what happens inevitably is you've got additional steps. So you want to customize it, you want to drive it. Maybe you decide after using it that, hey, the V6 is fine. I get better gas mileage. I don't need the extra capacity, but I want the red. It's pretty. So we get you the red. And those are quick tickets that we do. And because our system is native cloud and easy to deliver that way, when Q2 went public, it was great. But in the early days, and I know they've changed this now, it was very much server installation, which just means that it takes a long time to get the thing configured. And then guess what? When you want an upgrade, oh gosh, we got to upgrade. Whereas like the Tesla vehicles these days can push it right over the cloud. And that's what RiskScout has built natively. So any new features, any of those pieces. So that being said, we have institutions who can implement within 2 weeks. They can get their data, push their configurations and done. More times than not, we don't move any faster than the way you want to move. So more times than not, we will coordinate those things. And while we're waiting on those files from your core or whoever, if we don't already have a direct relationship to make that faster, we will work with you on training and configuration. And I think this team can tell you, you can use the system at that point. So if like in Deb's case, she wants to migrate, 60 to 80 customers initially, but she has 20 that are trying to open applications right now. Let's solve those 20 right now while we're getting the data for the migration. So we just done it differently. And like I said, when we say 24 hours, we say 24 hours, but I just want to be really clear that that's delivery so you can check out the car, and many times you can drive it wherever you want to drive it to, and it's a good use. But then it depends on sort of your tickets and the different pieces, but it's just not a lot of technical lift like I had in the past. And so it makes it easier for us to address it quickly. Plus also make it flexible to what you want versus just give you, static software.
I do like the fact that somehow, I'm in the middle of negotiating out a truck deal I'm probably going to pick up on Friday, and I keep telling them, look, man, I just want a freaking red truck. It's my favorite color truck. How'd you know this? How'd you know this?
It's my job.
There we go. All right, Deborah, I've got one more final question before I turn it back over to Niraj. And the last thing I'll say before I shut up and quit asking questions is thank y'all for this conversation. Part of Bankers Helping Bankers, knowing that the fund is making the right investments in fintechs that are solving problems for community banks is why we're here. So thank y'all for taking the time out of your day. Deborah, I'm going to be super nice to you because I just asked you the harder question, and I'm going to give this one to Jack. But don't worry, it's coming back to you before we close it out, right? So Jack, my favorite question. What am I not asking that I should be asking about RiskScout? I love that question, right? You have to think about it. Deborah, you're lucky.
Yeah, I used to have a coworker that would ask that at the end of a job interview, which makes it even more scary. So I first met Justin like 2 years ago, and like the only thing, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago at a conference, we talked for a couple of hours, and he essentially at that point resolved all of my concerns. I have a pretty high risk tolerance for my job description, so I wanted like everything he had to offer. The one thing that I don't think we've really touched on is, to me, RiskScout, we've talked about, MSBs, cannabis, niche deposit gathering thing. Deborah alluded to it, onboarding accounts. One of the killer features of it to me is it's almost like a multi-purpose tool that we haven't really talked about. One of the things I was trying to solve is we're just dipping our toe into sophisticated deposit gathering. And so we're building out our new account process. We're building out a treasury onboarding process. At the same time, we're trying to build out an MSB onboarding process. And I'm like, that's stupid. Let's build out one process. And I proposed that to people at RiskScout, and they're like, oh yeah. And so it was like, they turned it on, just like Justin said, it gave me access. I logged in, and I'm like, hey, there's these like 4 or 5 more questions from a treasury management application that aren't in the native default MSB questionnaire. What would it take to add these? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And a few days later, it was there. And so now my version of RiskScout asks enough questions for my MSB BSA team, for my new account team, and for my treasury management team. And then I can just print to PDF and say, here's all the data we need for those 3 pieces. And that's just one example. You could do like all your treasury through there, or any other type of deposit niche you have. Even if it's not a new niche, if it's just one you're already doing, you could revamp it and use it essentially as an online account opening platform. So the multi-purpose nature of this tool, I don't think we've hit on, but that's something that is very valuable from my perspective.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jack. Deborah, you got a little time to think about my favorite question here. What am I not asking that I should be asking about RiskScout?
Yeah, I think I should ask Justin how many commercials he was in before starting this job.
Oh, a whole nother conversation.
But in all seriousness, for us, exactly what Jack said. We have a treasury management team, we have a lending specialty team, and everything was being collected very manually or via Dropbox, right? Here's the forms, fill it out via PDF. And of course, people are used to that. But, the beauty is that we had an opportunity to get them adjusted to our way of processing. And it's here, let me send this to you and I'll spell it out exactly what I need, what documents I need. And we basically create a stacking order in preparation for compliance, just like you would if you're a mortgage banker getting ready for underwriting. There's no difference. The difference is, and having worked in mortgage, this system is a lot more intuitive and user-friendly and able to adjust a lot more quickly. And a lot of the feedback that we have presented to RiskScout, they were able to implement so very quickly for us. So for us, Specifically, consolidation, we took 4 forms that we would take to normally onboard a customer, and it is now 1. And now I don't need Treasury to get any additional information or documentation. So by the time the account is approved and my Treasury management team is reviewing the account, they are logging into RiskScout and they are verifying all that information and inputting it into the system. There's no more paper. There's no more having to have these discussions with the customer as to who your signers are, what access do you need. We have 1 onboarding phone call, but all that information is already collected. So we don't need proof of address. We don't need any documentation. It doesn't even get to Treasury until we have checked all the boxes that we've created internally. So I feel like for most financial institutions, that's usually the stopgap, right? Here we go. Here's a new customer and they're ready to roll. We don't have their articles. We don't have their operating agreement. You got to go back and chase it. The customer can't even submit anything to us unless we have most of those items selected, or we will make it a required document, which again, speeds up the time of back and forth and collecting information that we should be able to get from the jet. So for us, again, efficiency, and we have looked at implementing this across other lines of business in the bank because it's been so successful. And I can tell you that a lot of our lending team constantly look over our shoulder, like, can you show me again what that does in RiskScout and how you did it? Because they are looking very much and implementing something in the very near future.
Outstanding. Well, Justin, I think you'll laugh at this joke real quick. Another friend of mine, another IBADX candidate, I was going to be doing a webinar and they said, are you doing it or Christopher? Because we prefer Christopher. And so we've had this joke that Christopher's kind of Peyton Manning of football, right? I mean, he's just so dang good at everything he does. And I'm Eli Manning, right? I mean, I've won a couple of Super Bowls, but not as much as Peyton. So Niraj, it's backup quarterback out here to Christopher. He's so dang good at everything. Thanks for letting me moderate this panel. Anything that you want to close us out with, Justin, before I turn it back to Niraj?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think what I take away from hearing this is just that we're meeting the expectations that we set, which is super important to me. We have not just a goal, a requirement that 100% of our customers are referenceable and that we're serving this market. And that changes. And we said, the saying in Texas, I'm sure people have it, is you dance with the one that brought you to the dance. And that's never been more true. What I think happens as companies get bigger is they lose that insight. I mean, they sign bigger institutions and they push your energy into that. And, that's not who we are. And so it's really great to hear that the flexibility, the things we're doing, meet those expectations. And the last thing I'll just say is one of the feedback points I got not too long ago was a $60 million revenue company that had worked a little bit with Deb and another institution. And she literally came out of the blue and said, this is awesome. Like, she's a RiskScout fan and is not a RiskScout customer. And so what does that mean when a $60 million business for one of our banks is so excited with the compliance software, right? It means that we are delivering an experience that means they are excited with their institution, right? And that's what they said. The technology and the relationship are just far beyond. We closed 12 of our other institutions and we focus on one institution. That's what it's about for us. So it's really great to hear it. And that's how we use this energy, and I'll share it with our team.
Justin, just to give you maybe one more selling point here, maybe you could talk a little bit about the sizes of the institutions that are customers. Obviously, we've heard from 2 banks. One is a $500 million bank, one's a $1.1 billion bank. But talk a little bit about the ideal bank customer from a size perspective, if there is such a thing, or the range of sizes that you can accommodate from your solution.
It's a good question. I got in trouble one time with Matthew, I think, on an IBAC conversation, saying that we trying to focus on 5 billion and below. There's really nothing magical about the asset size, but I'll tell you right now, giving you a little bit of perspective, Deb and Jack, y'all probably don't know this, but our institutions range from both bank and credit union. 60 million in assets is the smallest to over 8 billion. And there's no magical size. My only line that I draw from previous history is going so high up bank market that there is a issue with providing software where we can't provide it in the same level for all of our customers, right? So if someone comes to us, and this happened a lot in my previous lives, and they want to chop everything up and then take it a different direction, that's great. And that could be $2 or $3 million, contract. I know Niraj, as an investor, you're like, go get it. But because you're a good investor, that we have to be balanced, and we're going after the whole market. There's a reason why Verafin is kind of getting out of the market. They're going up on rates. It's because NASDAQ wants them to sign tier 1 banks. And I get that. It's a great product, by the way, but it's not going to serve the needs of smaller institutions. And my biggest sort of win, not from a revenue perspective, but just from an impact perspective, is that $200 million bank who thought that it was going to be this big expense, and they can't afford BSA and AML automation. And then what's happening to a lot of them across the country is that they're losing their BSA officer of 30 years. And then what happens? You can't afford that. That's what you can't afford. And so what can RiskScout do to give you, whether we call it progressive BSA to fix these features here and go, or full BSA, but make it affordable? And the only way a company can make it affordable, so your existing ones are not going to be able to do this, is if it's cloud-based and it's easy to deploy. That's it. That's a simple story. And so, I'm probably one of the the most honest vendors ever, or partners and vendors ever, to tell you that, because I'm going to tell you right away if we can meet your needs or not, and I'm going to tell you if we can do it at a reasonable price range where we can do that. And so I guess the last thing I would say is just come to us and let's have a conversation. We actually had a $200 million banks filing too many CTRs. First thing we said is we're not going to automate that. We're going to help you reduce those CTRs, because that's a bad decision. And let's tell you why. Now, it's ultimately their decision, but helping in that way is what we're about. And they don't have to buy another piece of software. We're just glad we help.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Justin. I hope all the attendees got a good flavor for why we're excited to be an investor in RiskScout, for all the problems that they're solving for community banks. Jack, Deborah, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days to help educate some of the other banks on this product. Matthew, thank you again for your time. We'll send out an email with everybody's contact information to all of the attendees. If you want more information on RiskScout, if you want more information on the fund, the Bankers Helping Bankers organization, or get in contact directly with Deborah and Jack, as long as they're open to it, just feel free to reach out. We're here to help. We're here to help community banks. Thank you again.
So much for having us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Take care.